Good morning, ladies. Today we're going to make chicken and dumplings. I know that sounds like a daunting task, but trust me, it's very easy. We're going to use a whole chicken today. If you've never cut up a whole chicken, today is going to be your day. I've taken it out of the sack and I'm going to rinse it off. I'm going to remove the innards, if there are any, and there are not in this bird. You want to make sure that you don't have any feathers or anything attached to your bird before you put it in the pot. And this is going to be a rough cut. You don't have to cut it up as if you were fixing to fry it up. You just need to get it in parts small enough to where things will cook evenly in the stove, in the pot. If you've never cut a chicken up before, you grab hold of his little leg and you cut around the skin. When you get down here, you will feel where the thigh bone goes into the backbone and just cut it off. Under normal circumstances, if you were cooking this or frying it up, you wouldn't want all that skin and stuff on there, but since we're going to be using the skin for the flavoring, we're going to put all of it in because that's going to make our broth for the dumplings that much more flavorful. You can take and pop him out. We're going to pop his little wing off here. For ladies that are working on a budget, it's more economical to buy a whole chicken and cut it up than it is to pay the butcher at the grocery store to do it for you. I think this chicken cost $8.71. It's a 6-pound bird. If you bought this at the store already cut up for you, you're going to spend over $10 for the same thing. And it's fun to cut up a chicken. Alright, this is the backbones. This is the breast. We're just going to come in here right below the rib cage and cut him apart. You want to use a fairly sharp knife for this so you can go through the bones. If you've got one, this would be a good use for your kitchen scissors. I'm going to get mine out in a, well, no, I don't need to. It came apart. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Just taking out some of the stuff that gets stuck up in the rib cage. Not necessarily something that you want inside your chicken and dumplings. The breast, I'm going to cut in half. Here again, we're just trying to get pieces small enough to where everything's going to cook at about the same speed. We're going to be going, once this is cooked, we're going to be going in and pulling all the meat off the bones. So you don't have to worry about, right now, about any of the little bones that we see poked up in here. Okay, I've got the chicken cut up. What I'm going to do now is first wash my hands off, which is something that you always want to do when you're cooking with chicken. I'm going to cover the chicken with water here, and you're going to fill the pot up to a couple of inches above where the chicken is. And we're going to go ahead and salt and pepper it at this time and get the fire going under it. And this is going to be the stock that we're going to be using to make the dumplings with after the chicken is cooked. So go ahead and season it up nice and good. And we're going to put a lid on this, about medium-high heat. It's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour to cook. Keep checking on it while it's cooking to make sure that you know, it doesn't boil over or anything. And when the chicken gets cooked, then we'll come back and we'll tell you what the next steps are. We'll see you in a little bit. Okay, now comes the fun part of the chicken and dumplings part. The best part of the meal, or the dish that I think, is the dumplings themselves. I could really do without the chicken as long as I've got good dumplings. To make dumplings, you need 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 cup of Crisco shortening, and 3/4 of a cup of milk. And I've got the ingredients all set out over here. There's the 2 cups of flour. Here's the 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Measure up a teaspoon of salt. kind of want to mix those together. 1/4 cup of Crisco. And at this point, you want to cut the Crisco into the dry ingredients. If you don't have a pastry cutter, a fork is an excellent tool to use. What you're going to do is you're just going to take that lump of Crisco and you're going to mix it into little bitty bits. And incorporate the Crisco down into the flour. You want to clean out your pastry cutter every once in a while to get everything off the inside of it and back down into the pan or into the bowl. And it's going to look nice and crumbly for you. You want to add the 3/4 cup of milk. And stir it all together. And it's going to make a very almost pie crust type dough. You want to make sure that you don't have any flour left, that it's all been mixed into the wet. At this time, if you want to get your hands down in there to finish getting it all mixed up. Believe it or not, this is what dumplings look like. Okay, I'm going to take and flour down my surface here. You want to put your dough down into the middle of what you've put down here for your flour. Get both sides of your dough floured up, and get your rolling pin out and flour down your rolling pin so that things don't stick to it. And we're going to roll this dough out till it's about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch thick. Roll one way, turn it, making sure that you've still got flour on the bottom, and just keep rolling it out. It doesn't matter if it's not any particular shape. You're fixing to cut it up into little bitty bites. Get another bowl over here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the fire back on underneath the juice, our chicken stock. If you get little bits of flavor all up and around the side of your pan or your bowl, if you just take your spoon and play with it a bit, they'll come back down. And now I'm going to slice my dumplings. This is one of my husband's favorite dishes now, but when we first got married, I had said something about wanting to make chicken and dumplings, and he said, "Oh no." Well, come to find out, he had never eaten chicken and dumplings before. I made them for him one night when we had company over, and he ate 2 bowls of it, and then he asked what it was, and I told him. He said, "Well, I don't guess I've ever had chicken and dumplings before." It's great anytime, but it's also a wonderful comfort food on nice, cold, dreary days like we have today. On one of my previous videos, I said something about how it was kind of warm. Well, welcome to Texas. In a week's time, we've gone from 80-degree weather down to 40-degree weather. What I'm doing here is just pulling the dumplings apart. I'm going to loosely put them into this bowl over here. And when the chicken stock starts back to a rolling boil, I'm going to drop these in. My mother used to drop them in one at a time, but I don't think she ever made the full recipe since it was just the 2 of us. I do remember it taking a long time for her to drop them. I usually drop 2 or 3 at a time. And while you're dropping them in there, you're wanting to stir also. All this extra flour that's on the countertop here is going to go in also. It thickens up the juice. If ever you go somewhere and you find out that they've made their chicken and dumplings with flour tortillas, to me that's not a real dumpling. There's some cultures that call dumplings a dumpling and they're actually a big egg noodle. This is good old Texas dumplings here. If also when you're making this dish, if you decide that you don't want to cut up your own chicken, it's perfectly fine to buy chicken pieces, chicken parts. You just want to make sure that you've got some dark meat in there so that you can have the juice be flavorful for your chicken stock. Chicken breast has flavor to it. It's just not as good as the dark meat to me. I'm going to scoop up this little bit of flour here and I'm going to sprinkle it over that. And let's see how we got a few minutes for our water or for our stock boils up again. So I'm going to come back to you in a minute when the stock is boiled or boiling, and we'll put the dumplings in the juice for you. Okay, my stock is boiling over here, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up, and you want to do this very gently, because when you plop these little things down in there, it's going to spit back up at you, so don't get your hand down too close to what you're doing down there. Just kind of drop them in. You're supposed to cook the dumplings for 15 minutes. They're going to puff up like little biscuits in here. When you start getting more in, it's going to be necessary to stir. For one, since they're all coming back up to the top, you want to move them around so that you can get some others in. And you don't want them sticking on the bottom. Think to yourself maybe that, oh, there is no way I could do this. But as you can see, ladies, all it is a chicken that you put in a pot and boil for a while. Take it out, save the all the juice from what you cooked it in. And it's flour and Crisco, and a little bit of milk. My mother always used to tell me that I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to stir because I was left-handed, and being left-handed did everything backwards from her. But as you can see, even a person left-handed can make dumplings. Before I put the dumplings in here, I made sure that, very carefully sure, that I had my seasoning right, that I didn't need anything like, needed a little more salt. So I very carefully tested and tasted the juice to make sure that I didn't need to add anything. If you taste your juice, blow on it first. Make sure that you don't burn your mouth, and then you can't taste the rest of your food. If you find that it's too salty, add a little bit of water to it. That'll cut the salt down in it. Okay, I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and turn the fire off from under it. And I'm going to go and take all the meat off the chicken bones over there and add the chicken pieces back into here. So I'll be back with you in a minute. Okay, as you can see, the chicken is cooled off enough for you to pick it up and handle it. What you're going to do is you're going to have you a cutting board down here in your extra bowl. I don't put the skin into the dumplings, so I'm going to take the skin off and it will get thrown away. What you want to make sure most of all is that you don't have any little bitty pieces of bone or anything down in there, because that kind of spoil the meal for you if you bit into a bone. You're just going to pull it off. on the chicken breast that I cut up into the big pieces. You want to take and just pull it apart, kind of shred it up a little into little bite-sized pieces, making sure that you take the skin off. And the part that you have to be most careful about on the breast is it's got a lot of little bones in it, the wishbone, all the ribs and everything. You want to make sure that you don't end up with any of the little pieces of bone left in there. Okay, I'm going to continue chopping up or getting the bone out of this chicken, and I'll be back with you in a few minutes to put it all together and show you the end result. Okay, I've taken all the meat off the bones. Got a bowl full of bones here. There's not much use for chicken bones that have already been cooked, but you could probably put them back into a pot and get some more flavor out of them for a stock later on. As you can see, the dumplings have cooked down. I'm going to put the meat back in. If you want your dumpling to chicken ratio to be more than what a single recipe calls for, make 1.5 or make two recipes of it. It will certainly not take away from what you've got going on in the pot. Okay, for all intents and purposes, this is done for right now. I'm going to let it sit here for a few minutes and cool off before I transfer it to a bowl, so that we can sit down to the table and eat it after a while. I thank you so much for watching my videos. Maybe one day when all the madness goes away, we could have a hands-on cooking class where I can tell you what to do and let you do the work, and I'll teach you how to prepare these meals that are easy for anyone to make. God bless your families, and we'll see you later. Bye.